In one night, I turned a billionaire into a bankrupt. It all started when his mistress called me a useless woman in front of 300 guests at our own corporate gala. Dear viewers, drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. My name is Victoria Blackwell, and until last night, I was the wife of California's most powerful businessman, Alexander Blackwell. The security guard at the Ritz-Carlton's entrance smiled and waved me through without a check. After all, I was Mrs. Alexander Blackwell, co-owner of the empire being celebrated tonight. For 20 years, I was the shadow behind his success. I pored over contracts at midnight, hosted dinners that sealed million-dollar deals. But tonight, everything changed. The ballroom glittered with gold. The mayor chatted with bankers. Tech moguls hashed out deals. This was Alexander's coronation as a new member of the billionaire elite. I adjusted my emerald gown, the one Alexander had picked out. "Green makes your eyes mysterious," he'd said absently as he had for months. "Alexander must be over the moon," purred Patricia Sterling, the governor's wife. "We both worked for this," I replied, scanning for my husband. "Of course, dear, you've always been supportive." Something in her tone stung. Moving through the crowd, I noticed oddities. Conversations hushed as I approached, knowing glances, pitying smiles. By the chocolate fountain, I caught a whisper. "I feel sorry for her. Everyone knows except her. Poor thing has no clue about Scarlett." Scarlett, Alexander's new assistant. A 24-year-old blonde with ambitious eyes, hired 6 months ago, working late, joining him on business trips, always whispering in his ear. My hands trembled. Late meetings, sudden trips without me, new cologne on his shirts. A deathly silence fell. Only the hum of the air conditioning remained. Alexander's face shifted from red to ashen. "Victoria," Patricia said carefully, "what exactly are you proposing?" "I'm not proposing, I'm informing. As of this morning, I've liquidated all my assets in Blackwell. The company needs immediate restructuring to stay solvent." "You can't," Alexander began. "I can, and I did. What I built, I can destroy." For the first time since entering, I looked straight at Scarlett. The smug woman who humiliated me was gone. Her makeup couldn't hide the terror in her eyes. She grasped the scale of the disaster. "Of course," I continued, holding Scarlett's gaze, "the company could recover under new leadership, someone unburdened by recent scandals." Alexander followed my stare to his mistress, the realization dawning. "You're destroying everything to get back at..." "At what, Alexander? Your affair? Public humiliation? Erasing me from the company's history?" I stood, gathering my papers. "This isn't revenge, it's business." The room's temperature dropped 10 degrees. James scribbled notes, calculating his own position's damage. Patricia mentally drafted resignation statements. "What do you want?" Alexander asked weakly. "What I've always wanted. Recognition for my contributions and respect for my intellect. Since you can't provide either, I'll secure them myself." "The board won't accept..." "The board has no choice. Unless you find $35 million by tomorrow's market close, Blackwell is bankrupt." I paused at the door. "I suggest calling an emergency shareholder meeting to discuss new management." As I reached for the handle, Alexander played his final card. "I'm stepping down." The words rang like a death knell. Directors gasped. Scarlett's face turned waxen. Her golden ticket vanished. I turned back. For a moment, I saw the young lawyer I'd fallen for. Brilliant, ambitious, but weak when faced with real consequences. "Wise choice, Alexander. My lawyer will prepare the divorce papers. Once you secure the company's future, we'll discuss personal asset division." I left the room a different person. Behind me, frantic whispers and Patricia's pen scratched out damage control. Scarlett's heels clacked on the marble. She was chasing Alexander, plotting her retreat. The elevator closed with a soft chime. I allowed myself a smile. 23 years of invisibility taught me how visible I could become when I chose. 3 months later, I sat at a cafe on Rodeo Drive, reviewing partnership offers. Harrison Investments, my new firm, had caught attention after 2 successful startups in its portfolio. I saw shades of young Alexander and myself in those entrepreneurs. Hungry, brilliant, ready to change the world. But now I was the one calling the shots. Victoria. I turned. Alexander stood by my table, looking older and smaller. No longer the commanding tycoon, just a tired man in a rumpled suit. Alexander, how are you? May I sit? I nodded at the empty chair. I've heard about your success, he said, sitting awkwardly. Harrison Investments is the talk of the town. You always had an eye for potential. Thank you. Silence. He fiddled with a coffee cup, searching for words. Victoria, I want to apologize for everything, for Scarlett, for how I treated you, for years of taking you for granted. I set down my tablet, studying his face. The remorse seemed genuine. Where's Scarlett now? Gone a week after the collapse. Turns out she was also seeing an investor from San Francisco. A bitter smirk. Poetic justice. And you? Trying to rebuild my reputation. Started a small business consultancy. Modest, but honest. He met my eyes. I realized you were the real brains behind everything. I was just the face. Alexander. No, hear me out. I was a selfish jerk who took you for granted. You deserved better. I found Alexander by the stage, surrounded by investors. He looked striking in his tuxedo, silver hair perfectly styled. This was his night of triumph. But as I approached, the circle of men seemed to close ranks, shutting me out. Alexander was discussing global expansion, oblivious to me. Alexander, I called softly, touching his arm. He turned. For a split second, irritation flashed in his eyes, quickly replaced by a polite smile reserved for bothersome guests. Oh, Victoria, you're here. His voice was flat, indifferent. No embrace, no kiss, no introduction to the high-profile clients. Of course I'm here. It's our night, I said, trying to keep my tone light. One by one, the men excused themselves and drifted away. I need to keep working the room, Alexander said, already scanning for his next target. Deals don't close themselves. He walked off, leaving me standing like discarded decor. The rejection burned, but worse was the realization that everyone was watching, judging. Then I heard it, clear as crystal. There's the frigid wife who can't keep him satisfied. The words were loud enough for me to catch. I turned, trying to pinpoint the source, but the faces blurred together. Poor thing doesn't know about Scarlett, another voice added. Victoria, darling. Scarlett herself materialized beside me in a crimson dress worth thousands. Her smile was sharp as a blade. Hello, Scarlett, I said, barely controlling the tremor in my voice. She leaned in, her perfume cloyingly sweet. I think there's been a misunderstanding. This party is for business partners and key shareholders only. I'm a key shareholder. I own 22% of the company. Owned, she corrected with mock sympathy. Past tense, darling. Alexander was going to tell you. Before I could process her words, 2 security guards appeared. The same ones who'd nodded to me for years now looked right through me. Remove this useless woman, Scarlett announced, loud enough for half the room to hear. A dead silence fell. All eyes were on us. I searched desperately for Alexander, but he pointedly turned away, engrossed in some projection discussion. The guards escorted me out, gently but firmly. It hit me. Everything I'd believed in, my life, my marriage, my future, had just shattered. The revolving door closed with the finality of a funeral bell. Each step down the marble stairs was a step away from a grave, not just of my marriage, but of the old me. In my clutch was a velvet box, a platinum bracelet engraved with the coordinates of where Alexander proposed 23 years ago. I'd ordered it 4 months earlier as a surprise for after his speech. Bitter irony. "Are you okay?" A young waitress, out for a smoke, looked genuinely concerned. "Just getting some air," I said, forcing a cracked smile. I reached my Tesla, slid inside, but didn't start the engine. For the first time, I let myself think clearly. The signs had been everywhere. His sudden passion for fitness, contact lenses instead of glasses, mysterious restaurant charges from places I'd never been, rushing to shower the moment he got home. But the worst pain was my complete erasure from our success story. Every article called it Blackwell Enterprises, crediting Alexander as the genius founder. No one cared that I'd invested my grandmother's inheritance for his first office, secured connections through my family's law firm, or burned the midnight oil over contracts. I opened my phone and called Robert Chen, our financial advisor. "Robert, I need something done Monday morning." "Victoria? It's 10 p.m. What's going on?" "I'm liquidating my stake in Blackwell Enterprises, all $22 million. A pause so long I thought the call dropped. "That's a massive decision. Can we meet later this week to discuss?" "Monday, Robert, and freeze all joint accounts. Anything tied to Alexander gets locked immediately." "Are you getting a divorce?" An hour ago, I'd have said never. Now it felt inevitable. "Just execute the transactions. I'll give you details tomorrow." Next call to my travel agent, Linda. "Linda, cancel the Paris trip next month." "Is something wrong?" "It's your anniversary with Alexander." Anniversary. He was probably planning to spend it with Scarlett while I sat home, clueless. Plans changed. Cancel everything. There'll be hefty penalties. Doesn't matter. Send the paperwork. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Mrs. Blackwell, you dropped a box by the entrance. Should I bring it to your car?" Hotel security. Somewhere between the door and the parking lot, I'd lost the bracelet. The coordinates of our proposal were scattered on the asphalt like everything else. "Keep it or toss it," I replied. But I did care. That was the problem. 23 years of devotion, sacrificing for his dreams, playing the perfect corporate wife. Caring had become my cage, and Scarlett had shown me the key. My phone lit up. Alexander calling. The photo was from last Christmas, him laughing with our daughter. He'd looked genuinely happy then. I declined the call. It rang again, then again. By the fourth, I started the car and pulled out. Let him wonder where his wife disappeared to. Let him explain to Scarlett her sudden vanishing act. Driving past the financial district where it all began, I remembered Alexander's first office, now a Starbucks. He'd been so excited. "We'll change the world, Victoria. You and I will build an empire." We did, but we became he, and I'd let it happen. My phone buzzed relentlessly. By the time I got home, 48 missed calls. I pulled into the garage of our mansion, surrounded by the luxury of his success. Tomorrow, I'd start dividing it. Tonight, I'd sleep in our bed for the last time as Mrs. Alexander Blackwell. The woman who walked into that gala was a naive fool. The one sitting in this car was someone else entirely. I woke at 5:30 a.m., as always. The empty side of the bed felt vast. Alexander rarely stirred before 7, but his absence now felt final. In the silent kitchen, I made coffee. The grinder's hum was the only sound in the morning stillness. My home office looked the same, but everything shifted when I sat at the mahogany desk, a 10th anniversary gift. The filing cabinets held 23 years of meticulous records. Every receipt, contract, and statement organized with German precision. Now those documents would serve a new purpose. First folder, Blackwell Enterprises. Founding Documents 2004, my signature next to Alexander's, co-founder and primary investor. Funny how corporate history rewrites facts. I photographed every page. Digital trails don't lie. Second folder, 2007 loan agreements. When Alexander needed $5 million for expansion, my family's firm provided connections, but more importantly, I was the guarantor. My assets were on the line, not his. More photos, more proof. By 8 a.m., I documented 19 years of contributions the company's biography forgot to mention. My grandmother's inheritance for the first major acquisition, a second mortgage on our home to cover payroll during the 2008 crisis, countless clients from my network. My phone rang. Robert Chen. Victoria, I've been trying to reach you since 6. Markets open in half an hour. I need verbal confirmation for the transactions. Confirmed. Execute everything we discussed. Blackwell's stock is already down 4% in pre-market trading. Rumors of a major shakeup. Are you absolutely sure? Never been sure-y. Okay, it'll be done in 2 hours. I open my laptop. A legal notice drafted at 3 a.m., cold and precise. No emotion, just facts. Victoria Elizabeth Blackwell notifies the board of directors of the immediate liquidation of her 22% equity stake and termination of all joint financial obligations. My finger hovered over send for 3 seconds. I clicked. The email vanished into the digital void, carrying the end of everything Alexander controlled. 30 seconds later, my phone erupted with calls. Alexander's name flashed, but I let it go to voicemail, again and again. By the 4th missed call, I savored the silence between rings. Each ignored call was a small victory, a reclamation of power. Texts poured in. Victoria, what the hell is this? Call me now. Delete. This is insanity. You can't destroy everything over a nervous breakdown. Delete. You've triggered a corporate crisis. The board's in emergency session. Delete. Second cup of coffee, back to the archives. Partnership agreements revised 5 years ago look sinister in this new light. Alexander had been planning for a while, reducing my role, increasing his liability, but he made a mistake. He didn't remove me from the founding documents. Legally, I was an equal partner with full rights. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. Mrs. Blackwell, this is Scarlett. I hope you're feeling better today. Can we meet for coffee to discuss yesterday's misunderstanding? The audacity was staggering. The woman who publicly humiliated me wanted to discuss a misunderstanding. I replied, there was no misunderstanding, and it's Ms. Harrison now. I'm taking my maiden name back. Instant response. Don't be hasty. Alexander's upset. I'm sure we can find a solution that works for everyone. Works for everyone. As if I were the problem to be managed, not a betrayed human being. I screenshotted the exchange for my evidence collection. The house phone rang, a number few knew. Victoria Elizabeth, what's going on? My sister Sarah's voice crackled through the speaker. Alexander called me in tears, saying you've lost it. On the contrary, I finally found my sanity. He says you're destroying the company out of spite, that you're having a breakdown. I walked to the window overlooking the garden Alexander never cared about. My roses bloomed vibrantly, the product of hands always dirty from soil he never noticed. Sarah, did you know I poured $30 million into Alexander's success? Not counting my time, connections, or unpaid labor. Well, that's what you do in a marriage. Did you know he's having an affair with his assistant? That she humiliated me in front of 300 people? Silence. This isn't a breakdown, Sarah. It's a wake-up call. Big difference. The house settled into calm after the call. I returned to my desk, opened a new document. If Alexander wanted to play the victim, he'd have to explain 23 years of financial records painting a different picture. My phone showed 84 missed calls, but the buzzing became white noise. Each ignored call shed another layer of the life that had suffocated me. The woman who left the gala in shame was gone. In her place sat someone Alexander didn't know, a woman who knew her worth and was ready to claim it. The Blackwell Enterprises boardroom intimidated visitors with its panoramic windows and massive table, but today I felt like a queen in the leather chair I'd occupied for years during strategy meetings. I arrived an hour early, laying out documents like a general before battle. Directors trickled in, faces sour. Men I'd known for decades suddenly couldn't meet my eyes. James Collins, the CFO, gave a sympathetic nod. Patricia Webb from legal looked ill, calculating the fallout. Alexander burst through the oak doors. In 23 years of marriage, I'd learned to read his moods, but I'd never seen this. Disheveled silver hair, crooked tie, bags under his eyes. The commanding presence that dominated for 18 years had evaporated overnight. Scarlett slipped in behind him in a blood-red suit, stark against her ghostly pallor. She pressed against the far wall, arms crossed defensively. She tried to project confidence, but her eyes darted between us like a cornered animal's. Victoria. Alexander's voice cracked on my name. What have you done? I leaned back, hands calmly folded. Good morning, Alexander. Gentlemen, Patricia, thank you for convening on short notice. Cut the theatrics. Alexander slammed his palm on the table, making several flinch. You've triggered a financial collapse. Stocks are tanking. Clients are panicking. The bank demands answers. James Collins cleared his throat. Victoria, perhaps we can discuss a phased transition. There's nothing to discuss, James. I liquidated my position per the bylaws. It's all legal. Alexander paced behind his chair like a caged predator. You've destroyed everything. 23 years of work, gone overnight because of your tantrum. The accusation hung in the air. The directors waited, expecting me to crumble, justify, prove the narrative of an unhinged woman. Instead, I opened a folder and pulled out a document. The 2004 founding charter. See my name as co-founder and primary investor? Strange how that detail slipped from the corporate biography. Alexander froze. That was a formality. The 2007 loan guarantee when we needed $5 million for the Collins Industries acquisition, I said, laying down the next sheet. My assets secured the expansion, not yours. Scarlett stiffened, finally paying attention. And this, I said, placing a thick stack on the table, is every financial contribution to Blackwell Enterprises over 2 decades. $35 million in direct investments, not counting connections, client networks, or strategic leadership. On the table lay the truth, organized in neat stacks of paper, each page a brick in the empire's foundation that Alexander had claimed as his own. Directors exchanged glances. Some flipped through the documents, avoiding my gaze. Patricia Webb, usually unflappable, fidgeted with her pen, realizing my legal preparation was airtight. This isn't a tantrum, Alexander, I said, my voice steady but laced with steel. This is justice. You erased me from the company's story, but I'm reminding everyone who built it. Scarlett stepped forward, her heels clicking like gunshots on the parquet. Victoria, no one's denying your efforts, she said, dripping condescension. But this isn't the way to handle it. We can negotiate, bring you back into the fold. Bring me back? I raised an eyebrow, letting her words hang. Scarlett, I never left the fold. You and Alexander just decided you could play without me. She opened her mouth, but I raised a hand, cutting her off. Don't bother. I'm not here to entertain offers from an assistant who forgot her place. The room gasped. Someone stifled a chuckle. Scarlett's face flushed, but she quickly regained her haughty mask. Alexander looked like he'd been slapped. He knew he was losing control, and it hurt more than any financial loss. Victoria, James Collins said cautiously, as if navigating a minefield. If you push this liquidation, we could lose key investors. Is there a way to soften this? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Soften it? James, I've already softened it. If I wanted to destroy Blackwell Enterprises, I'd have sold my shares to competitors. Instead, I transferred them to a trust managed by an independent fiduciary. The company can survive, but not under someone who betrays their partners. Alexander sank into his chair, hands covering his face. You want me out? That's your plan? It's not a plan, Alexander. It's consequences. I stood, gathering my documents. The board will receive my restructuring proposal by end of day. I expect you'll accept it if you want to save the company. Now, gentlemen, I have other business. I walked out, leaving a tomb-like silence behind. Scarlett whispered something to Alexander, but he didn't respond, staring into the void. For the first time in 23 years, I wasn't a shadow but a light. No one could ignore. Harrison Investments occupied the top floor of a downtown Los Angeles skyscraper. The panoramic windows offered a view of a city that once felt like a cage, but now stretched out as a field of possibilities. My desk was buried under proposals: biotech startups, AI ventures, green energy projects. Each morning, I woke up feeling like I was building something for myself, not for someone else. Alexander kept his word and stepped down. Blackwell Enterprises survived under new leadership, a sharp, ambitious woman I handpicked from the vice presidents. She wasn't afraid to challenge the old guard, and the company was slowly recovering, free of Alexander's cult of personality. Scarlett vanished almost immediately. Rumors swirled that she tried latching onto another tycoon, but her reputation as a gold digger preceded her. Last I heard, she was in Dubai, posing as a branding consultant. I didn't waste time thinking about her. She was a footnote, nothing more. The divorce went smoothly. Alexander, broken and without leverage, agreed to my terms. I kept the Beverly Hills house and half our joint assets, including the art collection he adored. But most importantly, I reclaimed my name, Victoria Harrison. Not Blackwell, not Alexander's wife, but a woman who shaped her own fate. One evening, in my new office, I received an email from Alexander. Short, devoid of his usual bravado. Victoria, I was blind. You were the heart of everything I thought was mine. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm grateful for the lesson. You were always the stronger one. Alexander. I read it twice, then deleted it. There'd be no reply, not out of anger, but because he was no longer part of my story. On my desk was a contract for a new startup, AI for medical diagnostics. The founder, a young woman with fire in her eyes, reminded me of myself 25 years ago. I signed the papers and smiled. This wasn't an end. It was a beginning. A year later, Harrison Investments made Forbes' list of the most promising venture firms. I spoke at conferences sharing a story now called Inspiring, from corporate shadow to leader. But I wasn't chasing applause. I was chasing meaning. One evening, after another successful launch, I sat on my terrace watching the sunset over the Pacific, a glass of wine in hand, a tablet of new ideas on the table. My phone was silent. For the first time in decades, the quiet didn't scare me. It soothed me. I was Victoria Harrison, and that was enough. Dear viewers, if you enjoyed the story, give it a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you won't miss new exciting stories. See you tomorrow.